During the 90th letter from a producer live, the producer and director Naoki Yoshida introduced the new Quick Panel feature. This is being added in patch 7.4, releasing on the 16th of December. The TLDR on the Quick Panel, if you didn't know, it's basically a feature that allows you to quickly access anything that you would ordinarily place on a hotbar onto a panel instead that can be toggled on or off. Some players use systems to do this already in the game with macros to try and streamline their UI, toggling various different macroed action bars on or off. But this is a brand new panel then that's built into the game with no prior macro knowledge and allows you to put things like emotes, buff food, markers, things that you use occasionally but don't really want taking up precious UI space in the process, allowing you to do a number of things to toggle this on and off at button presses, the ability to make it so it automatically hides when a button is pressed from the Quick Panel, and many other quality of life changes to make this the perfect screen-saving tool that could revolutionize the way the majority of players access that kind of information and should hopefully clean up a few UIs. There are some pretty horrific UIs I've seen posted on the internet. So obviously we have a developer blog entry talking about this today on the 10th of December 2025, and it's quite interesting, so I thought I'd share it. So let's take a look at this then. So this is the Japanese developer official blog. This will be translated officially, presumably sometime in the week for the North American and European Lodestone version, but at the moment it's only on the Japanese blog. And effectively they're telling you what it is, right? How to access it. You can find it on the extra menu. It's a button that you can drag or drop to a bar, or of course you could macro this. It is completely macro safe. They've got some nice pictures though, some nice higher resolution images that we can look at if we zoom in, and effectively that's what it looks like. So you press a button if you've assigned it to your hotbar or a macro or something like that, and it is a transparent window when you first open it, which is basically 4 different tabs. So effectively you have a 5x5 hotbar with 25 slots in total, and you have 4 pages of those 25 slots. So that's pretty healthy, honestly, as a start. I'm sure there will be expansions to this feature in the future based on feedback, which is what Square Enix wants us to provide based on this, and many of the features such as the strategy board as well. So be sure to check it out and put it through its paces. And it says the registration methods are the same for a hotbar. Yeah, basically anything that you could ordinarily drag and drop to a hotbar, you can do the same with this. This is especially useful for people on controller, as you would imagine. You know, limiting the amount of button bloat on screen is going to help, but also especially for PC users. I like to put everything from, you know, job selection to change job, from emotes and stuff onto separate bars, and that will free up that space for those action bars to be used for something else. With the inauguration of the Quick Panel, means I can use those for other useful things, which is always good. Obviously, you know, 4 tabs, total of 100 slots. That's pretty healthy. Of course, we have lots of different buttons here. We have 4 toggleable options if you press the cog option at the top right of the Quick Panel, and these options, albeit in Japanese here, effectively, you know, they're fairly simple to go through. The bar here is transparency option, so instead of having a transparent background, you can have a solid black one instead, and you can toggle how much of that transparency there is. That's what that does. The first of the buttons allows you to close the window when the action is performed, so that's this tick box here. So effectively, if you have something like sprint on here, you can have a button to open the Quick Panel and press sprint, and then as soon as you've pressed sprint, it will obviously close the panel entirely, which is a really cool option. Effectively, if you don't want sprint on your bars, sprint's never been the one that's been the issue. I like their example of return though, or like teleport list, things like that. That would be a nice option to add to the Quick Panel, because not everybody wants to keybind, you know, stuff like teleportation. It does free up room when you get to it. Of course, the other use case scenario is emotes, which they're using here. You know, having access to ones that you use quite often, you know, clap or sad or whatever it might be, depending on what situation you're in. And obviously outside of the use case scenario for people doing duties and things like that, or other things in the game, this is especially useful for the RP community as well, right? That is definitely going to save up some space on bars without messing up where you would normally have combat abilities. The other option, then the second toggleable option down, this allows you to basically display the window according to the mouse position. So depending on where your mouse is, for example, in this picture, they have got their mouse over here, not that you can see it, there's an arrow to specify where their mouse is. Basically, if you press the hotbar button whilst your mouse is in any location, it will open with that in mind wherever your mouse is. So if my mouse was over here and I pressed the 1 in this case, it would open a quick panel up in the top right, but their mouse is over here, so it would open in the top left. Basically, this is useful to prevent you having to, move your mouse extra distance. If it's a preset here without that toggle on and you haven't dragged it to that same position that you normally want to, then you'd have to move your mouse. Whereas this, you could press the button, it could open here, in fact, and you could press buttons. It's probably one of the more lazy options, but quite useful. Nice quality of life addition already. They say, assuming the red arrow in the upper left of the image is the mouse, it opens there. So there you go, look, an example directly of that, and then the person using the wave emote directly as well. There's also the gamepad operation. It says it's also pretty easy to operate with a gamepad. So as you can see here on the 5x5 grid, you'll need to move 4 times to get to the corner slot. However, in the quick panel, you can move the cursor by skipping 1 slot at a time, by holding down the Y or triangle button and using the directional keys. Of course, this is Y for Xbox, triangle for PlayStation controllers. For example, the slot in the top right corner, so they're talking about the bow emote here, can be accessed by holding down the Y button or triangle button and moving once upwards and once right. So as you can see, holding down that north button, the triangle or the Y will allow you to skip a slot. This is to make it easier for controller users to have the same functionality that I would with a mouse, just going and clicking on the thing, or of course binding that. But yeah, that's pretty helpful. Using this function, any open panel can be accessed in no more than 2 moves from any slot, which is pretty good. They've thought about the use case scenario. They don't want people to go to get to an ability or an item or whatever it might be, because that's just painful. You might as well have just hotbar keybound it, to an action bar. But yeah, it's good that they've thought about this, and you can see that there's the comparison of what you would need to do for that. It looks complicated, but it's really not. It's quite simple. This is a new operation, but you'll get used to it after using it for a while, they say. Also, you don't need to use all of the slots right away. You can fill only the slots that you can move in one go. So effectively, they've shown here what is effectively a third cross hotbar, which a lot of controller users might use for abilities, quite honestly. It depends on the latency. If this has low latency, much like any other action button, then this could be used for combat abilities, unlike, macros and things like that, which do have that inherent latency. So we'll have to see what that's like in terms of the window latency when the game comes out, the patch comes out for the 16th of December. But in theory, it should be really useful for job abilities as well as just emotes or whatever as well. And the last button, open the last used panel. So this setting will open the last panel that was opened when you use the quick panel. So of course, we've got those different slots, right? We've got all 4 pages. Let's say we were on page 4 the last time we used it. If you toggle the last button here, it will open exactly where you left it, which might be a useful one to have and is actually quite nice to have instead of opening the default page every time and having to scroll through or click through or press on your controller 4 times to get to the page. Very nice, very helpful. And there's also lock dragging as well. This is a feature that is also available on the hotbar, but it allows you to prevent registered actions from moving when dragged. So instead of me accidentally going and clicking and, when I'm clicking something, accidentally clicking and dragging it off and then making that dance disappear or the wave disappear, I can lock those in place. Nice standard things that you would expect to have. But yeah, basically that's the TLDR of that. And it gave us a little bit more insight into what all of the buttons are and what's possible. I think controller users will probably make the most out of this. But I do like the idea of just having an extra place to store things. Being a keyboard and mouse player, I've already resorted to using macros to hide action bars, but I would like to use those action bars for a fully fledged system that allows me to open, you know, there's lots of things you can do with macros and hotbars, basically, and having the stuff where I have it cluttering up my UI and trying to hide it is quite a pain. So hopefully this is as good as it looks, and hopefully it's low latency, and effectively I'm looking forward to it. It's one of those small features that's baked into the game that you will probably forget even exists after the first month or so, even if it takes that long. You know, just as simple as not being stunned whilst walking through a monster whilst mounted. You know, how many people even remember that being a change in Stormblood? Many people have joined since then. You've got to effectively think that there are people who are going to be starting the game with this already being here, you know what I mean? It's crazy, isn't it, how time flies? But there are some very small but very significant quality of life changes happening to the game, and I'm all the happier for it, especially the strategy panel. Hopefully we get some more info on that. A dev blog would be lovely on the strategy panel, and I'm sure they will go on the strategy board system. But yeah, this was especially helpful. A link will be in the description, but of course, yeah, definitely check out the live letter summary as well for more information on all of the things added in patch 7.4, releasing on the 16th of December. Much love, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.